some people that were absent. So I want to start at the end of the third line from the top, in Dalet.
President, so like even on the third line, what's the Rishis of an Dalet here?
Which was Tevis? Midalet Yisaitis.
Smurkov is like a chariot.
I'm sorry? Murkav is put together.
Oh, it's like a comprised, right?
Yeah. Right. All right. So I'm going to start at the end of the third line, V'hinei. And what brings us to that point is the discussion of the fact that the Nefesh Holekis and the Nefesh HaBahamis are very different. Not very different, they're opposite. And they discussed in detail, in basic detail, of what these opposite qualities, how that manifests itself. But the Nefesh Holekis understands only Elokus, Nefesh HaBahamis understands only Hadshama. And then he says the reason for that difference.
Sorry, I was just catching up real quick.
The reason for that difference is that the Nefesh Holekis is in fact itself rooted in Lokus. It is, so to speak, a godly entity. And this is why you can only understand the Lokus. Nefesh HaTivis, Nefesh HaBahamis is Gashmi, that's put together of Dalet Yisaitis Gashmi, and that's why its comprehension is in Hagshama, This is important to emphasize in order for us to understand what follows. The principle over here is, understanding Seichel per se is something that has a process. Like you can prove things by logical proof. This which you prove through logical proof is not what one calls real understanding. In other words, you understand what the proof is, what you've proven, but you do not necessarily have a grasp on what the idea is, because it's distant from you. Okay, you've proven that this is what happens. Understanding is that which you can personally relate to. The Nefesh Holekis can relate to Lokus. Nefesh HaBahamis can relate to Dvarim Gashmiyim. Dvarim Gashmiyim to the Nefesh HaBahamis are things that it experiences. Therefore, it is real to it. Nefesh Holekis does not experience Gashmiyas. Therefore, it's not real. A Lokus is something that it experiences, therefore it's real. Now, this emphasis that it understands things that are of its own quality it's important to understand this. As I said, in terms to understand the principle of what it means to understand. Gashmi is like in our experience, we all basically understand with the sake of the Nefesh HaBahamis, occasionally with the Nefesh Holekis, but basically we think with Nefesh HaBahamis, Seichel Anushi. We can immediately picture, and if something is described for Gashmis, we can immediately picture and feel that if I were there, I would actually be able to experience this. This is Gashmius. Because this is something which we can actually directly relate to and experience. And therefore, when we learn something about that, step back for a second. I want to explain I want to bring you into the point what I want to explain. Sight is a very effective quality in the person. We understand that which you see is very impressive. There is the experience of sight at the time of sight, and the experience of sight that remains with you in memory. And what's the difference? The experience of sight, as such, exists only while you see it. Like if you had seen anything, and you want to describe it to somebody, you can only describe its effect, its form. You cannot describe the experience of having seen that. Because that's real only while you're experiencing it. Not something that you can carry with you away. Now, knowledge, seichel. Seichel is something that we learn. You learn a Mishnah, and you say, okay, I learned the Mishnah. Tomorrow, did you learn this Mishnah? Yeah, what does it say? It says such and such. Which means that you can actually review the Mishnah, not only remember the words, but you can also review the whole cycle of the Mishnah, the reasoning and all that. Why? What are you retaining? You've learned it yesterday. How come you still have it today? Again, I'm pointing out, you can, to retain the words, that's memory. But to retain the seichel that you learned, on what basis, the reasoning, the fact that it makes sense, on what basis are you retaining it? It is that the seichel and the Mishnah is presented in a gashmistic way, and it makes sense to you, and that you can retain. Because you can relate to the very reality of this of this seichel. That is why the seichel is something that you relate to, and you can carry it with you. The nefesh olekis can carry along any seichel that it understands that's in the lakus. Why? Because it can relate to the oleki element. Nefesh Abamis can retain any seichel that it understood in Gashmi Zohar because it can relate to it. Okay, so there. The fact that it can retain it is based on its own nature. The nefesh olekis has its nature, the Ram has its nature, and they retain it on the basis of their own experience and their own natures. Okay. Now let's proceed. Any questions on that? I don't know. The point that you're making is, there's a difference while you are seeing certain things and subsequently after. That you're seeing, while you're seeing something, there's no question. You see it, it's there. The question is what remains with you afterwards. So that which you have a personal affinity to, that you can carry with you. And that's what the nefesh olekis, the seichel nefesh olekis can carry with it.
So like let's say like when you chazer a piece over and over again. Since you chazer it many times that day, So the next day, I can for sure remember it, because you memorized it.
Right, this is what I'm pointing out. I'm not talking about that which you memorize by repetition. That's very important. But what you're memorizing is the words, structure. I'm talking about the seichel, the understanding.
No, I'm speaking about, and you chazar over the whole, like, the concept. You know, finds like, on say your chavis, let's say. So you tell him over the whole piece, and all the reasonings and stuff, he tells you. So the fact that you did that yesterday also helps you remember it today. That's also a sort of like memorization.
I'm saying this is memorization. I'm not talking about memorization. I'm talking about understanding. I'm talking about that which makes sense to you. That you're retaining the seichel.
What do we mean by like logical proof doesn't give you a grasp on reality? What do we mean by logical proof?
I'm going to use a physical demonstration, okay? In the halacha, a physical demonstration so you understand, okay? There is what's called geometry. And in geometry, if you set up an angle, any kind of angle, okay? And you set up an angle over here, like this angle here, and then you set up an angle over there, okay? So you have two angles. And the line starts from this angle and comes this way, and this angle comes this way, okay? You know what is the distance, what will be the distance from, when these two lines will meet, for instance. And what kind of,
You mean between this and that?
Yeah, and what kind of area it's going to encompass. Now, that you know only logically. It did not actually encompass the entire area. This way, you can actually predict the size of an area that is miles long. And you can't even surmise the size of it.
Like the other example you gave with Rashi,
That's right.
Was it 50 by 100?
That's right. Right, 50 by 100.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I'm saying you do not experience the actual reality. You just know what it is, because these are the principles. These are, so to speak, mathematical principles. Whereas when you grasp something, you grasp the actual experience, what it is. I'll give you an example from halacha. That's interesting in halacha. In halacha it says that, a boy becomes bar mitzvah at 13. And then, from then on, he continues to grow. He's not finished yet. And at 20 is when he matures fully. That's halacha. And what is this maturity express itself in? Huh?
By real estate.
He can be trusted with real estate. And what does that mean, trusted with real estate? What does it mean?
Understand the value, appreciate the value.
Right. We discussed this, right? In other words, because up until that time, he appreciates money. Why? Because with money he can go and buy a candy, or buy a bicycle. or buy anything that he can use. Real estate. What's real estate? It's a piece of ground that stands where it is. He can't do anything with it. He can't put it in his pocket. And he doesn't really appreciate it. To him, money is more useful than a piece of real estate. Why? Because he hasn't matured yet. He cannot orient himself as being part of the world. To have something that part of the world doesn't appreciate. Something I have in my pocket, that I have. Something that is standing someplace I don't understand. In fact, real estate is the most valuable thing that a person can have. Because that's really steady and it's a part of the world. You really own something. This is understanding and seichel. And how do you get to understand it? It is because you actually experience living in the world. You matured and that becomes reality. Before that, and before you matured, as I said, you can value that which you can carry with you. It's an interesting Rahman al-Islam. It's a big pain to watch. They're what they call bag ladies. You ever hear this bag ladies? In the city, you have a lot of these people, like homeless people, who walk around with big, huge bags, and all of their possessions they carry with them in these bags, and they wouldn't let go of these bags for nothing. So the maturity, the development of a person's intelligence is not only that he can figure out 2 times 2 equals to 4, logical, but it is something that he cannot relate to. He has a sense of value of things. That is, that's what seichel is. That seichel is based on the nefesh olekis can relate to a normal likim only, not to gashmis. Nefesh abamis can relate to gashmis. Okay, so let's go on further. V'hinei. Av sheha nefesh olekis va nefesh abamis hem hafochim ze mizel gamri. Canal, although the nefesh olekis and nefesh abamis are opposite one to the other, totally, as we have explained and we have shown it. V'kol mokoim, yet still onu royin dover pele. We see something of a wonder, total wonder. What is the pele? Sheyesh hibur v'kishu the nefesh olekis im nefesh abamis. That there is in fact some kind of interbind between the nefesh olekis and nefesh abamis. What does that mean? Behind them, and that is b'hislap shos nefesh olekis beguv v'nefesh abamis. And the nefesh olekis is mislabish in the guf and nefesh abamis. Okay, one more line and then we'll discuss. Yaskil v'yasig nefesh olekis es elokus. So then the nefesh olekis will detect yaskil and will comprehend the elokus v'hislapshus b'seichel the nefesh ativis. The nefesh olekis, as we said, knows only Elokus. Yet, because of the hislapshus means that once the nefesh elokis is in the human being, it can only know things of elokus through thinking along with the body. That was through Gashmis. It cannot know elokus independently of Gashmis, because that's what his slapshus means. It's now contained in nefesh habahamis. Now, if you recall when we spoke about the Ruach HaOdam, Ruach HaBheimo, we said Ruach HaOdam is Oila Lamaylo. Ruach HaBheimo is Rebbe Salmat. And we pointed out then that in Ruach HaOdam Oila Lamaylo does not only mean that it can only understand Ruchnis. It means like this. It means that when you see something begashmius, you immediately think of what this means on the ruchnistic level. Oil the mile. Like for example, the nefesh, the ruach ha'odam, the human being sees the sun rising up. What does it mean to the human being? Ruach ha'odam. There is a big ball of fire. He sees that there is light being provided here. Light is so to speak, is the ruchnius of the sun. The gashmi of the sun is the fire. But he immediately relates to the Indian, daytime is coming. Light is coming. This is Ruach HaOdam. Even though this is mamish in Gashmis. But within the Gashmis itself, he detects the Ruchnius element in this. As we discussed that time, I want you to just recall the way the Ruach HaOdam, the way the Nefesh Olakis treats and relates to the sunrise is exact opposite from the way the Nefesh Habahamis relates to it. Even though the Nefesh Habahamis also sees that the sun gives light to the world. But they see it totally differently. The Nefesh Habahamis sees the way the scientists see it. The sun is a ball of fire. The earth is a dark body. They're totally independent, separate entities. They have nothing to do with each other. It happens by accident that the sun and that the earth is in the path of the sun ray. Okay? It happens. So now the earth can steal some of the light of the sun for its own benefit. This is how it looks at it. The sun couldn't care less about the earth. The earth doesn't understand how it got so lucky to have the sun in its path, but it has it, and therefore it develops. How does the Ruach HaOdam see it? The Odam sees it totally differently. The Odam sees, hey, the earth is a rich, well-developed place with so many different species. It's unbelievable what the earth contains. Unbelievable. The most complex, profound entity in the entire universe. What's the sun? A ball of fire. Therefore, what does the human being say? The sun was created, the whole function of the whole presence of the sun, the whole value of the sun is that it gives light to the earth. It has no value of its own at all. May it be millions of times the size of the earth, it doesn't make it any greater. What's the sun have? Does it have a Torah? Does it have human beings? Does it have even animals? It has nothing. The earth is the richest entity you can imagine, and beyond the human imagination. So what's the sun? The sun is its light. That's all it is. That's its value. This is how the human mind sees it. That's what it looks at the ruchnis, or you look at the gashmis. However, this is the big point that we're making now. The Nefesh Elokis sees only Ruchnius. But once it's b'hislapshus in the goof, it will see the Ruchnius through the Gashmius. So it sees that, yes, in fact, we're in Gashmius, but what do I see in the Gashmius? I see the Ruchnius element. The light of the sun is a Gashmizik light, but it is for the purpose of giving light to the earth. This is what we're saying. There's a chibur between Nefesh Elokis and RASHAB. And therefore, the Nefesh Elokis will be able to understand the lukus be'halbosha b'seichel ha'nefesh ha'tivis. Be able to understand the lukus in be'halbosha means as it will be contained in the seichel, in a natural seichel. In other words, he can demonstrate a lukus in teva. You follow what I'm saying? He can demonstrate. Teva is, the sun rises. That's a teva that you think. And if the sun rises, the sun is a ball of fire. Therefore, there's going to be light extended all the way to the earth. That's teva. Nefesh Elokis says this teva is telling you something of a godly nature. You all follow me? This teva is telling me something of godly nature, even though I'm seeing it in teva. So it wakes up and Nefesh Elokis says, listen to me, my fellow. Take a look. It is teva. But what is this teva about? How come it is so well, it is so structured? There's a godly element in this. So it sees the Lukus in the Haslapshus in Seichel the Nefesh ha'tivis. And therefore, thereby it can actually demonstrate and kind of and alert the Nefesh ha'tivis that there is something more than just teva, something godly. This godly element is totally intangible. It's intangible. In other words, the sun is still the sun, the earth is still the earth. And you can still deny the whole thing, say, no, the sun doesn't know about the earth and the earth doesn't know about the sun. But if you look at it and you insist on it, think about it. You think this is insignificant? What? Like a look. It's giving light to the earth. And as a result of that, the earth wakes up and lives and produces, umpteen creatures. So therefore, it's alive. Thus, the being mislavish in teva, you can force the issue to force it to see that there is something more over here than just teva. That's what the Nefesh Elokis is. He slaps us in the seichel of Nefesh ha'tivis. And this is not the end of it. It's going to go on. But I just want to know: do I have you with me, everyone? Sorry?
I don't understand how you see in Nefesh ha'tivis as inside.
I'm explaining to you, right? The sun rises. Does that represent anything godly? The sun just moves in space, or the earth moves around its axis. It makes no difference. There are two bodies, right? There is this and there is this. The fact that this is here and this is here has anything to do with, is anything godly about it? This exists independently, this exists independently. Or the table and the book. Two separate entities. Right? There's a table, there's a sefer. I happen to use the table to help me hold the sefer. Can you say that the table is created to hold the sefer? Do you follow what I'm saying? The table exists independently, and the table exists independently, and I happen to use it for that purpose. There's nothing godly about it. It's a physical thing.
That's how
So it comes the Nefesh Elokis to the Nefesh Abba and says, hey, this is not the case. It is true. It functions naturally. There's a natural element in this. But this whole nature is actually representing something that is not natural. Representing something godly. So the godly element is now the hislapshus in the seichel and nefesh hativis. That's what David HaMelech said. Hashomayim esaprin koid keil, u'mas yodov magid arakia, gem yem abiyah imam valedar, he knows. Ein mevein dvorim. Nobody says anything. Right? Ein mevein dvorim. And yet they scream out, this is Mama's Maaseh Elokim. This is why he says it's over Pella. Mama is not over Pella. The Nefesh Elokis in the Slavish in the Seichel Nefesh, and then it understands Elokus from that perspective. Yasir V'hu. Okay, let's pursue this. You'll get even a better feel for it. Okay. And that is Mashiyochel lekarev kol devar hasogas elokus. The Nefesh Elokis is capable lekarev to bring close kol devar hasogas elokus, anything that has to do with comprehending and recognizing and understanding elokus, b'chol prat to prat, in every detail of it, lahavinoi, to be able to understand it. He can bring it to Nefesh Abba and explain it. B'misholim, b'dimyonis, b'dvorim gashmi. B'misholim and dimyonis. Dimyonis, finding similarities b'dvorim gashmiim in physical things. Okay. Remember, we had this moshel. Anything that you don't understand, please stop me, because I really, otherwise we're going to just, we had this mashal. Huh?
Are we going to explain the difference between the mashal and Dinyan soon?
No, we're not.
Okay.
Sorry.
Last time we Last time we were done.
No, we're not. If even after that we have the whole thing, maybe we'll go into it. Otherwise, we just get lost. It doesn't justify. We have this mashal that we all understood very easily, very well. Mashal is, if you invite a guest to your home, for supper, and you serve him supper, and you made a very good hefty supper. You served him very nicely, right? On real dishes, not on paper dishes. And real utensils, not plastic utensils. Everything is beautiful. And you gave him napkins, not paper napkins, but material napkins, the real stuff, right? I don't know if any one of you ever saw material napkins. Okay?
On the weddings?
On the wedding, right? Like wedding napkins, exactly right. Exactly right. And you served it to him, and you sat down, everything is fine. As soon as he sat down to eat, you say, okay, goodbye, enjoy your meal. Right? Sounds ridiculous. What's missing? What did I not do right? I invited you to be my guest for supper. I gave you supper. What does that tell you? And, it's obvious. And this is in the human experience. Poshet and Gashmi is human experience. What's missing? And if I did not leave and I stayed with you, Would that change the meal? Would that change anything? Am I giving you any more? There's a subtle human element that is an intangible thing that when I invited you to be my guest for supper, that's what you had in mind. You didn't have in mind the food. The food would be, by the way, a means of keeping company. But the main thing is the company. What's the company? What is the company? Nothing. It's not a tangible thing. And the company is true only to the human beings. Only to the human being. Human being appreciates this because he has seichel. He has a reality in his mind, not just gashmi. It's not just the taste of food or the belly. He has a sense of reality, and to him, company is much more impressive than the whole meal and the paper and the napkins. Right? This is a means to explain to Abhema, to Nefesh Abamis, that there is something more significant than the Gashmi. And the Nefesh Olikis is able to explain it, Nefesh Seichel, Nefesh to explain it in such graphic terms. You know, graphic means intangible terms. The Gashmi is mamash. To the extent that if in fact you invite him to as a guest, and you walk away after he sits down to the meal, you're insulting him. And you say, what did I do wrong? Right? This is similar to what we said before. The sun rises. And you say, oh, the sun rises. Oh, very nice. The sun rises. It's a bowl of fire, so I'm going to benefit from it. But don't you understand? It's there for your benefit. If you don't understand that, you're a behemoth. It's there for your benefit. It's a real thing. This is Pshat, the Seichel. This is the Seichel. Seichel Pshat. And if you don't understand it, it's called, you become, so to speak, intellectually inept, what's called brain dead. You understand only belly stuff, but you don't understand brain things. That which the brain is sensitive to, you don't understand. You can understand that which is tangible. But the brain says, hey, there's something else going on over here. The Nefesh Olekis, the Yislapshas, Nefesh Abamis, is capable of demonstrating the Nisholim and Dinyonis. Okay, Nisholim is a distant thing, and Dinyonis is an actual experience. Oh, look, this is what I mean. And this is what's happening in the bigger world. And then it's able to explain Elokus to Nefesh Abamis. Add the Nefesh, through using the means of the Gashmis and Kimis of Nefesh Abamis. But wait, this is not the end of it. He can bring Prat to Prat La'avina v'Misholim and Demimis Dvorim Gashmi to explain it. Misholim Dvorim Gashmiyim to explain the Yonim Olakus. Okay. Add till Shalidei that as a result of this situation that he's mislabish in Gashmius, and therefore he has to explain. See, this is the point. Nefesh Olekis, you can be mislabish in Gashmius, it still thinks only of Ruchnis, of Elokus, because Gashmis is not an entity to it. So mislabish in Gashmis, so what will it see? It will see the Elokus that comes through in Gashmis. It will see the intangible, the more significant, the refined aspect. That's what Nefesh Olekis will relate to, even though it's in Gashmis. He will never accept the thought that the sun and the earth, the sun gives light and there's nothing to do with it, with reality. He'll never accept it. That's what the reality is. It's like the original muscle we had. You come into a chasana and you see food, and you say all it is a restaurant to eat food. You're a pain. You mean all of this setup is for food? Not possible. This is what the Nefesh HaElokis is saying. And he is demonstrating in Sholem with Yenis, he said, this is, in Gashmis itself, you could see an Elokus coming through. Because in fact, the real truth is, there's no way that you can conceal Elokus totally. You can conceal it that the Behemoth cannot see it, but that the human mind cannot see it is impossible. You'll find Elokus in everything. And that's what the Nefesh HaElokis is showing up and revealing. Okay, add until Shalidei Zeh, that as a result of this presentation, Bo HaHaskol HaElokis B'murgosh. The Haskol HaElokis, the godly comprehension, comes B'murgosh, actually, B'murgosh, in actual tangibility. You can almost touch it. It becomes so real. It's still Eloki, but it becomes so murgosh that you can almost touch it. Lamato, here below, Ba'amitas inyono, it is B'murgosh here lamato. This is the phenomenal pillar. You can have Elokus understood to the extent that it's almost touchable. Ba'amitas inyono and you're not touching, so to speak, a secondary, a false presentation. The real truth of Elokus, a godly element, the way it is, the true Elokus, the way it is L'mayla. Because this...
the Nefesh HaElokis is able to feel this lemato k'may l'maylo, or that the Nefesh HaBamis is able to, also...
No, the Nefesh HaBamis gets a little bit of it. The Nefesh HaElokis has to explain to the Nefesh HaBamis, but the Nefesh HaElokis itself, as a result of that, the Nefesh HaElokis benefits that there is a hasoga or Elokus b'muchosh. B'muchosh, almost in a tangible manner. And what element of Elokus? The amitis Elokus, the way, the truth of it, not just a so to speak, a compromised representation, but the truth of Elokus. The truth of Elokus, the way it is L'mayla.
So why is that a mile? If the way that Nefesh HaElokis understands it, really the truth is supposed to be very in a more sicker way, no?
I'm sorry, say again?
How Nefesh HaElokis understands things, no, like it's tell us to understand things in a more sicker way, right? Right. So it understands in even on Ruchnis, right?
Yeah.
So now,
as a result of his lapsus in the Nefesh HaTivis, the Nefesh HaElokis will continue to pursue and find the Elokus as it is manifest in Teva.
But I thought I couldn't relate to that.
No, it cannot relate to Teva per se. Right. And therefore, it will reveal the Elokus as it manifests in Teva. It will use Teva as a mashal for the Yom Eloki. And it is manifest, and it's showing the Inyan Eloki, the true Inyan Eloki. Like, for example, what we said before about the dinner, the guest. Okay, this is a very, very significant, very valid mashal. What is the validity of the mashal? We do Torah mitzvahs, and we live like it. Torah mitzvahs in general, how we are oriented, we eat kosher, and we dress b'tznius, whatever, we all our entire behavior. And our entire behavior is actually, so to speak, that's the Jewish way of doing things. There is an element in this, that this becomes like almost a human element. This is proper, it's bekovidik for the human being to behave this way. Okay? But that aspect, that is bekovidik, it's appropriate and all that, that is not the true element of the so to speak, of the Yiddishkeit. The ultimate element of Yiddishkeit is, why are we behaving the way we behave? Is that there is one truth in the world. And what is that truth? What is when you wake up in the morning? You have to think that Melech Malchei Amlochim Oimet Olav Umrei because we're always in the presence of the host. Always in the presence of the Melech. Yes, we behave this, we behave this, it's becoming, it's ukovidik. This is not the real thing. The real thing is, it's not that the meal is nice, right? They have nice napkins. The real thing is that there is a reality. That's the Yiddishkeit. That's the reality itself. In other words, this moshel of a simple human experience is in a proper moshel to the overall reality of Eden and Meibus. Right? Father and son is always a moshel between Eden and Meibus. If we understand this inyam bonim, we understand the relationship between the Shomer Yisrael and Meibus. And Matan Torah is called a chasana between Eden and Meibus. These are all mashalim, but these are real mashalim. If you understand the way it is in reality, you understand how it is l'mayla. So even though this is all begashmis, but as I said, but the nefesh Elikis is absolutely able to reveal and to detect the inyan Eliki as it manifests itself in the gashmis setup. So you're right. Nefesh Elikis cannot relate to Gashmis, and therefore, if you say that there is a sun, there is a ball of fire, and there's an earth, and the earth accidentally picked up the light from the sun, you will never understand what you're talking about. But if you say, and as a result of that, the earth developed life and all that, that's stupid. You can't relate to that at all. But if you say that that there is a godly, there's a Torah mitzvah, a godly purpose, the Rebbe created the earth and he gave it light, that he understands readily, immediately. And then he gave it light by having a sun rotate around it. Perfect. Understands very well.
So it understands that in order for life to come, it has to go through the sun.
I'm sorry, say again?
So Nefesh Elikis understands that in order for it to light, it needs the sun. So does it understand the sun?
No, it doesn't need the sun. The Rebbe can give the light any which way he wants, but the sun, as big as it is here to serve the earth. That it understands very well.
It understands that it needs something to give light. So it doesn't different what it is.
Yeah, it could be different ways. The Rebbe gave it in the sun. Could be, of course, it could be different ways. Because primarily it's light, it's not the sun. Like in the first days of creation, there was light without the sun. You all know that, right? Okay, follow this. Okay, have you with me? And then as a result of that, the fact that he understands the Elokus through the Misholim Gashmiyim, Yasig HaNefesh Olekis as Elokus b'muchosh. Then the Nefesh Olekis gets to comprehend and recognize and realize the normal Elokus b'muchosh. What's mean b'muchosh? B'muchosh in a tangible way. Alidei hadvorim hagashmim, through, as a result of the dvorim gashmim, ma she'ef nefesh olekis lahasig, that which is impossible for the nefesh olekis to comprehend, bo'ifun kozeh, but that in that manner of clarity, b'muchosh, sheloi alidei hanefesh ativis, b'tad the nefesh ativis. The nefesh olekis are the central Elokus. And it is one thing with the Elokus, but to comprehend the Elokus in this clarity, it could not have it without the Nefesh HaTivis. The Nefesh HaTivis actually help the Nefesh Elokus to understand the Elokus, not to know Elokus, but to understand the Elokus in a tangible and in a, so to speak, b'muchosh, in a obvious manner. He gets it from the Dvorim Gashmi.
Otherwise, how does the Nefesh?
Okay, good. But so far we hear that. See, this is what we said before. Otherwise, the Nefesh Elokus understands the Elokus, no problem. But to understand the Elokus because of its own nature. Because that's its own reality. I want to explain something about Seichel for a moment. I hope I have you all with me. Yeah, you. In Seichel, there are two distinct levels. I'll tell you what the levels are, and then we'll elaborate. One is, I understand. It makes sense to me. The other is, this is a universal truth. I understand not because I understand, but because this is really true. This is true for me and for you and for everybody else. Like if you understand something, you understand 2 times 2 equals to 4. And I say, I don't understand it. You will not say, oh, you don't understand? Too bad. I cannot help you. I understand. No, you'll say, you understand? I'll show it to you. I'll be able to explain it to you. Why? Because you see this principle, 2 times 2 is 4, not as your personal understanding, but as an universal truth. And if I don't know it, I'll be able to get you to understand it. You understand? This is the difference. Nefesh Elokus understands Elokus in its own, but there it's it's personal knowledge, and it doesn't bother with anything else because it's not bothered. It feels very comfortable with Elokus. It doesn't need any further proof. Still doesn't compare to when it comes down in Gashmis, and in Gashmis it is seeing completely something different, and there it sees Elokus in Gashmis. Sees Elokus in Gashmis, then it's a completely different realization. It means that Elokus is true not just to me, it is really true. It's the universal truth, the b'muchosh. Something I can show you black and white, so to speak. Tangibly. It's a completely different knowledge. You get it? The Nefesh Elokus is actually benefiting in terms of its own recognition of Elokus by being challenged over here by Nefesh HaTivis. but not able to understand it in Beifun Koseh when it is not Behismatzus by itself. Beifun Koseh. Not that it's missing it, but it's a completely different experience. Okay, let's finish this sentence. Because the Nefesh Elokis is totally removed from the whole principle of Gashmis, and cannot understand Kiyum Haruchni Lavad, he can only understand the Ruchni. And therefore, this kind of understanding by from Mukshi is a very important, even though sight is the finest, Seichel is more significant, and sight is the finest way that we see things. Nevertheless, there is something to be said about Mukshi. Like if you touch Mukshi, tangible. Tangible is something which, so to speak, forces itself on you. It's not just, I understand because it makes sense to me. It kind of forces itself on you. That's a very special type of experience. Understand? Okay. Time's up.
It's like a universal truth that forces itself.
Right, forces itself. In other words, even if you were in the dark and you didn't see anything, if you walked around and you would detect this table. Why? Because it's there, the Mukshi.